Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We are also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
In this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we are releasing part one of my top rookie positions for 2025. So we will start with the top 8 quarterbacks of this rookie class. But first, here is the latest NFL news brought to you by Jeff.
All right, so the Giants made a couple of quarterback signings this week. The first one is they signed quarterback Jameis Winston to a 2-year deal. So this seems like he's going to be a bridge-style quarterback. But it does not appear that he will be the starter going into this year. It appears the Giants also signed quarterback Russell Wilson to a 1-year deal to seemingly start for the team. Alex, does this take the Giants out of quarterback for the draft, or where do you think this leaves the Giants at quarterback for 2025 and beyond?
I think this signals that they are concerned they might not get one of what they perceive to be the top 2 quarterbacks, as both teams in front of them have quarterback needs and haven't really done much to address the quarterback position. So it is entirely possible that the Titans take a quarterback and the Browns take the other quarterback, and so they needed 2 different options. It won't stop them that if they like one of the 2 quarterbacks and they slide to 3, it won't stop them potentially from taking him. But I think it's a better option to have a good veteran quarterback now and try to compete right away so these guys can save their jobs, meaning Dable, the head coach, and the GM, Shane, there. So I think that would make it interesting. It also wouldn't preclude them from trading up at the bottom of the first to maybe take a reach on, make a dart throw with Jackson Dart or another quarterback that they like. Ultimately, though, I think they're hedging their bets. It would be weird to have those 2 and bring in a rookie, though, on top of everything. So that would feel like a crowded locker room.
It is possible, though, because, Shedeur Sanders is being tied to them still, even to this point. So we will see if it happens. Stylistically, that could be interesting, because you would have 3 quarterbacks, and Shedeur Sanders would have 2 to actually learn from different things. So what are you laughing at there?
How to just sling it from Winston, and then how to run out of the pocket like Russ. They're 3 uniquely different quarterbacks. They all play completely different. So it's kind of a head scratcher. But
Russ is a bit of a chucker too, though.
Yeah, Russ is pretty good with the deep ball.
Yeah,
he's a little.
Both
him
and Winston have that stylistically.
Russell is a little more accurate and more cautious with his deep ball. Winston is reckless, like, go and get it, wide receiver. So I like that. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting how the draft shakes out, because no one has any idea what Cleveland's doing at number 2. And Myles Garrett keeps saying that they basically talked about quarterback options, and he said you have to have a young guy out there. So it means to me that they told him they were going to take Shedeur Sanders, and he was okay with that.
Yeah, I don't know that to be the fact, because national media is reporting Carter, I believe, is going there. We will see.
I've also heard Travis Hunter is rising up in Cleveland's draft board too. It's between those 3 guys, and if it's not one of those 3 guys, I will be completely shocked. We know for a fact that the Giants have had a presence at many, if not all, of Colorado's games. Now, is that Shedeur Sanders or is that Travis Hunter for them as well? Maybe both. I don't know. So it seems like all of those guys are going to go in the top 5 by this point.
Absolutely, and I've even heard the Cowboys are interested in Travis Hunter as well as their new Deion Sanders. So could we see a trade up to potentially get Travis Hunter as well?
They have so many needs, and they need to figure out now whether they're going to pay Parsons or not. But that's they've been struck a blow by Myles Garrett's contract, so I don't know if that will end up forcing them to trade, or if they are going to have to pay him as well.
Absolutely. But never put one by Jerry Jones grabbing a splashy, flashy player. We know that he loves them. But we can hop over to the wide receiver news, and a lot of wide receivers were signed this week. An interesting one here first. The Vikings signed wide receiver Rondale Moore to a 1-year deal. He's still quite young, coming off of a torn ACL injury from last year. So this is his first deal outside of his rookie contract, which he was traded from the Cardinals to Atlanta last year. But he figures to probably replace Jalen Nailor as the Vikings' third wide receiver going into the year. They're pretty stacked at wide receiver. Their quarterback room is a little less stacked right now. I think you told me the other day that it's JJ McCarthy and Brett Rippon, and that's it. So interesting strategy. I hope one of these wide receivers can throw the ball if JJ McCarthy either gets injured or falters or anything like that, because I wouldn't trust Brett Rippon out there. That's for sure. What are your thoughts on Rondale here?
I think it's a good spot for him. He profiles more as a wide receiver 3 for a team, more of a slot, or maybe more of a movement kind of Z wide receiver too. Depends on the scheme. But I think it's a good low risk move to shore up the wide receiver group for a team that has, I think, only 4 draft picks in this entire draft. So it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one here is a bit of a reunion on a 2-year deal. The Saints bring back one of, I believe, was one of their draft picks, wide receiver Brandon Cooks. So 2-year deal for Brandon Cooks. So he is coming home, and one of his many homes, because I believe he was a Saint, a Texan, a Patriot,
Ram.
and a Ram and a Cowboy. So he has many homes.
Yeah.
But he surely will replace the production that was seen by Marquez Valdes-Scantling last year, and kind of help Raheed Shaheed along as well, in my opinion. He'll either be the 2 or the 3 in this offense, and Shaheed will either be the 2 or the 3 in this offense, barring any trades or draft selections.
So we're talking Olave number 1, right?
Yeah, I'm still not super thrilled about that. He's probably more of a number 2 in the league at this point.
Olave is number 1, but he's never really gotten the touchdowns to make him a good number 1 in fantasy. Shaheed was the field stretcher before he went down, and then they had MVS brought in to replace him. So all of that is going to be in Shaheed, which means that Cooks is going to be maybe a slot guy now in his career, because I don't
That's
think
not
he's as
bad for him.
fast as he was. He's not as fast as he was 5-6 years ago. So
No, and he was a first-round draft selection for the New Orleans Saints in 2014. So he was picked 20 in the 2014 draft.
So if the Saints don't add any more pass catchers, does that mean that Jawan Jennings, who they re-signed, and Kamara, who's still there, are likely the ones to get the receiving touchdowns?
Probably, but look out for Cooks a little bit, but because he could still catch in the red zone and stuff like that as well. But he's only 483 yards away from 10,000 receiving yards in his career. So
He's had a good career despite moving from team to team.
traded for a lot of first-round picks, if I remember correctly, over the years.
A lot of first and seconds. I think it's more seconds than anything. But yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Raheed Shaheed is available to start the season, too, because he's coming off of a torn ACL, I believe, as well. That could impact Brandon Cook's early role as well. All right. Speaking about a guy that we haven't talked about in a while, Michael Gallup, wide receiver. Retired last year with the Raiders. He signed a 2 or 3 year deal with them, and he retired. Well, he unretired. They released him, and now the Commanders have signed wide receiver Michael Gallup to a 1-year deal, bringing the wide receiver out of a 1-year retirement. So he reunites with Dan Quinn because they played and coached together in Dallas on opposite sides of the ball. He went to a place where he felt comfortable. And he's a guy that could compete for that number 3 wide receiver spot and really help Jaden Daniels take another step forward in the NFL and his NFL progression. Thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know how much he's got left. It should be a cheap contract, so it's just a dart throw for them, and he may or may not even make it out of training camp. We'll see. But I used to really like Michael Gallup coming into the league initially, and he's had several injuries that derailed his career. Maybe he can have a nice back end of his career if he can stay healthy.
He got the big money deal in Dallas that shipped off Amari Cooper, basically, from Dallas.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
In
Jerry makes
hindsight, yeah.
a few of those. But the Jets are also adding to their wide receiver core. They signed Josh Reynolds to a 1-year deal, so I kind of expected him to look maybe at Detroit and maybe pair back up with Jared Goff because that's where he's had his most success. But he will be a wide receiver, maybe 4 or 5 for Justin Fields now, which we know he won't make more than 1, maybe 1.5 relevant in an offense. So I think Josh Reynolds is safe to file away in the back of your brains, but he's there.
Well, you got to remember the Jets head coach came from Detroit, so he has some familiarity with him. I think the offensive coordinator, he was the passing game coordinator for Detroit, so he is reunited with that same kind of scheme and same kind of guys. But this is a team that was linked up to Tim Patrick before he re-signed with Detroit, so it's not surprising at all that they bring in familiar faces who can teach the guys the playbook a little bit more. Help round out the team and give them some help. I've never really thought he was that great of a wide receiver, but maybe he can help the other guys be more effective.
Yeah, and I heard you say last week and this week that they were linked up with Tim Patrick, but for Tim Patrick, it was Detroit or retirement. Like, he did not want to leave Detroit.
Yeah.
So he told them to go pound sand, basically.
Respectfully.
Yes, respectfully. But the biggest wide receiver signing here is your former wide receiver, Stefon Diggs, signs a 3-year deal with the New England Patriots. So he effectively becomes the number 1 wide receiver option for Drake May. What are your thoughts on this one? Because he's a true alpha in that locker room now, but that didn't have any.
I think those are all true statements. As we've talked about it a few times, offline and online, they're a team that before this were filled with a bunch of guys that were in the 2s and 3s range, and you never really knew if they were actually going to be a 2 or if they were going to produce like a 3. Now they have someone who has been a number 1 for most of his career, and it's a risk him coming off an injury like this, but they've struck out with almost every single trade or free agent signing anywhere else, so they had to overpay him. And they had to take the risk. No one else was going to pay him close to that amount of money, so I understand why he took it. Now, I am very curious if we will get the Stefon Diggs from the early part of the Texans' year last year, or if he won't be the same and won't be as efficient. I hope that they're not done adding weapons. I hope that they draft someone too at some point. But I think this is a good start for them to turn things around. They kind of improved on the offensive line a little bit. They bring him in, they keep adding. It'll be really good for Drake May, and I think Stefon Diggs, if he's going late middle, would probably be a very good target in redrafts, and you might still be able to get him for relatively cheap in dynasties right now based off the injury history, but depends on how high people are with the news.
Yeah, I think Diggs for me next year is going to roughly be a 5th to 6th round pick. So don't think he's going to go as late as you want him to go, but I think he was the number 7 wide receiver when he got injured last year. So I think I have him wide receiver 28 right now, which would put him in roughly in the 5th and 6th rounds.
Yeah, and he might have a good playoff finish. He might start off slow and have a really good playoff finish. So he
Get
might
stronger.
Yeah.
But he had that core muscle injury the year before where he played through it. He didn't miss a single game, and he kind of tailed off for the Bills, and then he came back with the Texans very strong after he healed from that. But now he's going to have a whole other year recovered from that, and I think that'll only help him as he's aged now. So They should get a relatively fresh Diggs, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm still frustrated with the Texans for that trade because they gave up a second for a guy that had 3 years left on his deal and had basically no guaranteed money left, so they could have cut him after year one if they wanted to. But they brought him in, they paid a second round pick, they brought him in, and they shortened it, gave him guaranteed money, and then have a $16 million dead cap the following year and let him walk away. And he had a disappointing year because he got injured halfway through. So everything about that trade just stinks. And as a Texans fan, I'm disgusted. But I don't really hate Diggs. I know, Jeff, you think I just hate Diggs. I'm very frustrated by the situation that the Texans put themselves in with that.
Yeah, I think you hate him a little bit more than you should. He definitely more than filled in for Nico when Nico got hurt for more than 4 weeks in the middle of the season. Last year, unfortunately, he tore his ACL at that time, which that's not predictable. It's not something that you could even fathom to be like, I can't say that player X is going to tear his ACL this year. That's like a lottery pick injury. Same thing with Achilles and stuff like that. Those are lottery pick injuries, unless you're Deshaun Watson and you just do it twice in the matter of 2 months. But yeah, I'm really pumped about this. He could move up or down draft boards depending on how the draft goes. I'm not talking about fantasy drafts there. I was talking about the actual NFL draft. If there's wide receivers and running backs that go to great landing spots and are guaranteed starting jobs, then it does change the perspective a little bit there. But we're on to the last position here, Alex. And the first one here, the Raiders sign former Panthers tight end Ian Thomas to a 1-year deal. Not really a needle mover. He's going to be the third option there because of Mayer and Bauer from last year. And also, in the same division, the Chargers signed former Jets tight end Tyler Conklin to a 1-year deal. So they're going to be pairing him up with, I believe Hayden Hurst is still on the team, or is it Will Dissly that's left? I forget right off the top of my head. But one of those two, I think it's Will Dissly, that had a great stretch with Justin Herbert last year. So I do expect, Will Dissly to be the tight end 1 and Tyler Conklin to be the tight end 2 in LA this year.
I think Conklin's like immediately tight end 1 there.
We'll see. We might have a bet there.
He's better. He's better than Dissly. He's a better blocker. He's a better catcher. Like, he's exactly the type of tight end that Harbaugh would want. He's exactly the type of tight end for Greg Roman's offense. That won't necessarily stop them from taking another one in the middle of the draft, but I think they signed him because odds of them getting Copeland out of Michigan were decreasing because Copeland might be gone before they pick at 22. So that's just my thought.
Yeah, he seems more of like a line guy for year 1 and year 2, Jim Harbaugh. So I would expect offensive line to be the choice for the first round for the Chargers. And that's kind of a spoiler alert for my mock draft that we'll be doing in a few months. But that's kind of how I see that going.
Not in a few months. The actual draft is in 1 month. Yeah,
Weeks.
2 weeks.
But
Yes.
they did sign Dissly to a 3-year deal last year. They only signed Conklin to a 1-year deal this year. So it tells me that they like Dissly a little bit more than Conklin. They married one. They are dating the other.
Mm-hmm.
But Dissly had an incredible year last year with Herbert down the stretch.
I mean, Conklin's had a good 4 years in a row, even with a down year with Aaron Rodgers this past year.
I know, but Dissly had the split with Hurst last year and still outperformed Conklin.
Hurst hasn't really done much. His career
he was
is
brought
riding
in to
a
be
Hurst.
the one. I know, but he was brought in to be the one. Dissly passed him.
So yeah, I don't necessarily think that they'll be pushing the draft to tight end this year, despite all the mocks going for that. I do think that they've already addressed their offensive line, so I don't think that they'll go offensive line round 1. I think they'll go D tackle, is where it's leaning now.
Possibly, but only having 5 offensive linemen is a way to ensure that you won't have enough depth to get through the season. So that 6th and 7th offensive linemen are just as important, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you don't spend a first on a 6th. You spend seconds and thirds or fourths by guys you specifically target.
on if there's deals expiring after 2025, because you're not just drafting for 2025, you're drafting for 2026, 27, 28 as well. So that 4-year deal goes through 2028. So sometimes it takes a little while to get people up to speed, and people don't like to start rookies right away, and that just gives them more of a runway.
And sometimes the rookies never pan out. So you wasted a pick. But yeah.
Well, over half the picks won't pan out. So
I don't know about over half. I think most of them don't pan out.
yeah.
I think
would
it's
it most
probably
be
20.
over half?
You said most pan out.
I said over half don't pan out. And you were like, I don't know about over half because
No,
they don't pan out.
I thought you said more than half will pan out. I'm like, there's no way. It's like
No.
25% or something like that.
Yeah, and it's probably only half of the first round, give or take a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. But
That's the
Ian
league
Thomas
news,
doesn't do
though.
anything for me. Ian Thomas doesn't. He's depth or insurance in case they actually are interested in trading Meyer. So we'll see.
Absolutely. All right, that is it for league news.
All right. So now we can move on to my top 8 rookie quarterback prospects going into the draft. This is NFL wise, not necessarily fantasy wise. We will do our top 24 uh, rookies after the draft is completed, so we can appropriately rank them based off of where they landed and what the projections are. But prospect wise, I will break down my top 8. This is a pretty shallow quarterback class, in my opinion, especially compared to last year, which was abnormal. This, to me, I only have one first round quarterback, in my opinion, and that's Cam Ward out of Miami. The senior is 22, 6'2", 223 pounds. Most of these guys are roughly that size this year, so they all kind of fall into that. So I'll just point out who's bigger and smaller at this point. He's a little bit of an unorthodox player. He's a big game quarterback, in my opinion. He's got an adequate arm, not super strong, but he's definitely not weak. He does well in the middle of the field. He can extend plays, but he isn't really known for rushing. His stats, he doesn't really rush. He likes to actually throw the ball downfield, which is what we like to see. There are concerns that his accuracy stats are high due to the volume of his throws, which I can understand that if you throw 454 times or almost 500 times and you complete most of those, it's going to look good, even if the ball placement isn't very consistent, which I don't think it was. That said, he's still by far the best prospect in this group. I kind of view him, I know, Jeff, you don't like comps, but this is more play style. It's not necessarily saying they're going to have the same career or even the same exact quarterback, but like a smaller version of Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger is much bigger, but they have a similar play style. Ben had a decent career doing that, and I think Cam Ward could as well. My number 2 is probably going to be insulting to some people, but I actually like Jackson Dart as the number 2 for a prospect. He's only 21. He's about the same size as Ward. He's got sky-high potential, but he's got really low floor, too. He came out of basically an offense that runs 4 plays and different variations of them. And so it's very simple. They're mostly one reads, but he worked out of the shotgun, but he was very much a downfield passer, which is it was great to see, and that's a start. He's a 2-sport athlete, so he also played baseball as well as football. He's got great playmaking ability out of structure. He's really good at sack avoidance. He's got a quick release. One of his weaknesses is poor ball placement on deep balls. I think that's very apparent to anyone who watches him. I think for him to be successful, because he has the talent, he needs a redshirt year. He needs to go to an offense that has a lot of shotgun play and a lot of play action. And I think that, with a half decent to good coordinator, I think that they could coach him up on the redshirt year, and I think he could be very successful in this league. I don't really have a good comp for him. Everything seemed too good or too bad. I think he has a good potential. I kind of view him as a high second rounder, but he might get drafted in the first round, as we've heard lots of rumors. He might not. So I'm going to leave him at a second round valuation there. My number 3 also might upset some people, but I have Tyler Shock out of Louisville. I have him, my number 3 guy. He's a senior. He's one of the oldest oldest guys, if not the oldest guy out of the whole bunch. He's 25, but he is 6'5", 219 pounds. As one of the oldest prospects in this class, he also has an extensive injury history, but his size and arm talent are more than adequate enough to earn him a shot as an early backup and eventual starter in this league. I can't remember very many good players at Louisville on this roster, so I don't think he played with any wide receivers or O-line or running back that was really highly talented. Even his earlier stops with Texas Tech and I believe Oregon, I think he played pretty well there. Texas Tech, he got hurt early in the year, came back, and then brought them to a bowl game and a bowl game victory. So I think he's kind of a winner. But again, the key is health. Health and opportunity for him is going to be key. He's the only quarterback. I know last year a lot of people thought Caleb Williams reminded them of Mahomes. He's the only quarterback that kind of had shades of Mahomes. I'm not saying he's remotely close to Mahomes, but he has the platform throws, like off the platform, different various arm angles. He's very bold. He's got that athleticism. I think he's got the pieces, but he's starting at a disadvantage being older, and we got to stay healthy. So we'll see what we can do there. I kind of have a third round valuation for him, so we'll see where teams take him. I like him. Again, this is the only real productive year he had because all of his other ones were cut short.
Gotcha.
All right, number 4. Jeff, you'll like this one. Kyle McCord, senior out of Syracuse. He's 6'3", 218 pounds. He is, I don't know if you knew this, Jeff, but a little trivia thing. He is a 3-time straight Pennsylvania state champion in high school. So he won 3 state championships in a row. So he's already a winner. He was a high school teammate of Marvin Harrison Jr.
Okay.
He has the mindset of a gunslinger, but I'm not sure about his arm strength yet. I'm not sure if it's adequate enough or if it isn't. He's got quick feet that allow him to make throws on short notice, just make good throws. Sometimes he steps back a little bit too much, but he's got one of the faster average time to throw over the last 2 seasons. So I like the quick release. He is a fiery competitor, and he will stare down, look for a target while someone is barreling in his face and try to make the throw. I love his toughness there. He really has no fear in that regard. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Matthew Stafford. You look like Matthew Stafford, especially with Detroit, when he was getting beat up and still trying to hang in there and make plays downfield. I think he's a little bit weaker arm because Matthew Stafford had an elite arm coming in. But I like what McCord has done the last 2 years in college. He's been very productive, and I think he has a good chance to eventually be a starter. He's someone that's probably going to be drafted. I have him as a 3rd-round grade too, so I think he's right there with Chalk. You could almost swap them if you wanted to. That's totally fine because I'm pretty close on both of them. Number 5. All right, this is where I have Shedeur Sanders. I know, I know everyone is like, "Oh, he's a top 2. He's really good. He's a top 2." I have concerns with Shedeur. He is a senior. I think he's 22, 23 at this point. He is a small 6'1". I don't think he's actually 6'1". I think he's shorter than that. He's like 205 pounds. He's very small. He is a bloodline player, and I like bloodline players. He's got surprisingly clean fundamentals. There's not a lot to clean up with his mechanics or his footwork. I think that's actually fairly good. And he is relatively accurate, especially when the pocket is clean. But because of his small frame and because he has limited mobility, he will crumble a little bit as the pocket crumbles. So he will hold on to the ball to try to make a play, but he's not fast enough to get away. He'll panic. He'll make an errant throw at that point. But if you can keep a pocket clean and you can give him good weapons to work with, a good offense, I think he could find success. And I kind of view him as a smaller Sam Bradford because that was pretty much Sam Bradford's MO. He was very successful at Oklahoma with one of the best offensive lines in the country. When he got to the NFL, he never had an offensive line as good as that. He got injured a lot because he couldn't run away. He had no mobility. But when the pocket was clean, he was a technician that could throw the ball downfield. He kind of got in the league, he kind of got broken at some point and never really lived up to his first overall pick potential. But That's kind of where I see Shedeur Sanders. I also have concerns with his immaturity. He throws his offensive line under the bus rather than taking accountability for himself. There's lots of antics that he and his family have done with Colorado, and I do have actual insider information because I do know someone that works at that school and knows them very well. So there's a lot of immaturity stuff that I don't like. Hopefully he can clean that up. I'm also concerned he's only ever played for his dad. He's never played for a different head coach. So I don't know how he's going to respond in the NFL to someone who doesn't hold his hand and baby him as well. Maybe he's much tougher and more mature than I give him credit for, but I have a lot of concerns with him. So he is further down my list.
I think that's gonna be very controversial with our audience, but he may. I mean, I think all quarterbacks would benefit if they could slip a little bit and go to a better team. But obviously, everyone wants the status of being that very high draft pick. But let's be honest, most of the most equipped teams are the lower teams in that draft.
Yes. And I'm concerned he's going to go 2 or 3, and he's going to be another mistake for the Browns and Giants if he goes to one of those two teams. So, yikes.
Yep.
I gave him a low round 3 grade, so he's below the other two guys.
Okay. He's probably going to go round 1.
He's probably going to go top 2 or 3. I mean, people can have different valuations. That doesn't mean he should go there. I mean, people overdrafted Zach Wilson because of he was young and had traits. It happens, especially for desperate teams. All right, my number 6 here is someone who a year ago I might have had higher, but he had injury concerns that derailed his motion, his throwing motion, and got a little skittish. Quinn Ewers out of Texas. He's junior. He's 22. He's very confusing as is because I don't know if he regressed or if it was the injury that made his performance this year look worse. He shows high level flashes and then he has very crushing lows on throws that don't make any sense. He underthrows the deep ball, which is a shame because he's always had really fast wide receivers. So I have concerns there. He has really good athleticism, even though it doesn't actually show up in the rushing stats. His arm strength, when healthy, seems to be good, but like I said, he has the uncontrolled deep throws, often leading to short ball placement. He's a little bit skittish in the pocket. There's something he does when he gets skittish in the pocket is he takes erratic steps and the ball slips out of his hand a little bit while he's throwing, and the ball comes out erratically too on short throws when he's trying to evade pressure. I think he needs a redshirt year. I think he needs to get reset, hopefully by a good offensive coordinator to smooth out his rough edges. I struggle with the comp pick for him. I mean, Colt McCoy seems too low. Baker Mayfield seems way too high. He's somewhere on the gunslinger range that could have high potential but low risk. Maybe it's kind of like a Will Levis warning label, like he has tools but could be a disaster. Maybe something like that. But I think he's got a 4th round grade for me, and I think he might get drafted as high as the 3rd round, is my guess. Okay, we've got 2 more guys left. Number 7, Jalen Milroe. Fool me once, Anthony Richardson. You will not fool me twice. Jalen Milroe is basically the same kind of prospect that Anthony Richardson is. A little bit tougher, though. At least I don't think he's had really any major injury scares recently, at least. Not very accurate, but he's got one of the strongest arms in the class. He's also got a track background. He's very fast. He's a lethal rushing threat. Who does that remind you of? He's got some really good big time throws, and surprisingly he actually converts more than 50% on 3rd and long. Why he's at 3rd and long though is because he's very inaccurate with the other two. So he's got a lot to work on. He's very raw. He holds the ball too long, so he will get sacked. Despite being an athlete, sometimes he doesn't have the awareness to avoid the sack. He struggles to read defenses. My comp, he's in the Malik Willis, Anthony Richardson zone. Maybe a team can fix him, and maybe a team falls in love with his traits. There's a couple teams that have mentioned him. I don't think he should be anywhere near the 1st round. I think he's a 4th round prospect, maybe 5th round. That's going to get drafted too soon. But he's very athletically gifted, so I'll give him that. All right, final prospect, number 8, Will Howard out of Ohio State. Normally, I don't feel like I'd be as high on him as other quarterbacks, but this is not a great year for quarterbacks. He's a senior, 23. He's 6'4", 236 pounds, so he's a big boy. He's also a two-sport athlete, baseball and football. He checks many boxes with experience, size, a willingness to attack all coverages, and now he's a winner. He's a college champion, so that national title will mean something to some scouts and coaches. I think he's a good athlete for his size. He's viable as a threat on scrambles. His fundamentals are generally solid, though he has a weird elongated follow through with his back leg. He had bad performances, though, especially against school rival Michigan. He kind of crumbled, and that was a little bit concerning. He can look a little bit skittish. I don't think his arm strength is as good as people would want. I think he's good against cover two, but I think he struggles against other coverages. He did play better this year as the year went on. So the end of the year, he started playing really well, and that may encourage scouts and coaches that he has a future as a potential starter. I'm going 4th round grade, 5th round grade for him, same range as Milroe. All right, well, that wraps that up, Jeff. Do you have any questions or comments about any of these 8 guys?
Only thing I heard was Jalen Milroe that you're out on Anthony Richardson, and welcome to the team.
I had to give Anthony Richardson a shot. He has not done anything with it, and it doesn't seem like he will this year at this point. So you got to cut bait
It's
at
so
some point.
disappointing.
Like, I'll admit I was wrong. Maybe he'll reprove me right, but at this point, I would say I'm wrong about Anthony Richardson, and I would avoid that prospect model going forward.
Yeah, him and Trey Lance seem a lot alike, right? But different at the same time.
Well, alike in that inexperience at starting and very athletic and mobile, and unalike in the fact that Anthony Richardson is built like a linebacker and Lance is built a little thinner, but both of them also had injury issues.
Yeah, and I know this is going to be taken out of context and wrong, but there's some immaturity to Anthony Richardson's decision making that we didn't see with Lance also.
And yet Anthony Richardson is going to get more of a chance than Lance did.
Yeah, and I think it's just because Shane Steichen is more patient than Kyle Shanahan, and plus they drafted a better 7th round rookie than the 3rd round pick that might already be, or the 3rd overall pick that might be out of the league here in T minus, because I've heard rumors that he's on the CFL sign list now. So take that for what you will.
But yes, Jeff, I don't want to hear you say I can't say that I'm wrong, because I just said I'm wrong, and then I also said you're right about JSN technically being the wide receiver 1 in Seattle, and no matter how you look at it, I don't think that you can necessarily slot anyone else in at number 1, even if they bring somebody on. I don't think necessarily that there is a number 1 wide receiver in this draft either. I liked JSN. I could probably go back and hear myself talk about him. I thought he was the best wide receiver in that class.
I think he was the first receiver taken.
It's kind of, to me, it's almost like the T. Higgins situation. Like, is he a top end wide receiver 2, or is he an actual wide receiver 1 if you put him in a different situation? I don't know, but we'll see what JSN.
I do like the way that they brought JSN along, though, because they gave him his rookie year, which he got to come up to speed slowly. And then the second year, like, he filled in when the other 2 were out with injury, and he kind of overtook Lockett as the number 2 throughout the season. So it's been a very natural transition of upward mobility for him, not forced or anything like that either. So now it's forced because they got rid of Lockett and Metcalf, but he seems to be prepared.
Yeah, and I could honestly see them bring in a tight end instead of a wide receiver. I know they moved on from DK, and I know that they cut Lockett, but that doesn't necessarily mean they go wide receiver round 1. I can absolutely see them take one of the top 2 tight ends in round 1 too.
Absolutely. Lockett's still out there for any team that wants him, which doesn't seem like too many right now, so this could be the end of the road.
Come on, Texans.
Could be the end of the road. Wow, you guys got Braxton Berrios. You don't need him.
You and Braxton Berrios. He got a special teamers contract, Jeff. That should tell you all you need to know. The Texans, their big free agents spending spree was for 7 special teams players and then a bunch of depth defensive linemen. Mike, this is what you guys are doing?
Yeah, they want to win one side of the ball. of the 3.
And then give like $13 million to Cam Robinson for 1 season, and bring in 2 mediocre guards after getting rid of Mason and Green. Like, yay Texans! We have now 4 ranked number 60 something offensive tackles to compete for the starting job. We've done it. We're great now.
Yeah, I mean, you could still bring in Lockett or Odell Beckham Jr. Like, there's a whole bunch of wide receivers that you could still bring in.
I would be okay with Lockett, but don't you put Odell Beckham Jr. on me.
Dude, if you guys sign Claypool and Beckham, I might have a party on this podcast.
There was someone I was thinking about. I'm like, we better not get this guy, or Jeff is gonna have a field day with me.
Kadarius Toney.
No, it's not him. No, I can't remember who it was. But
one surprising name that's floating out there just because of his age is Elijah Moore.
I would love Elijah Moore. I love that guy. He didn't get a fair chance anywhere he went.
Yeah, it's just it's puzzling why he's still out there, but it's also telling at the same time because he is 24 years old. Same thing with Terrace Marshall.
Well, Marshall was a worse scenario for him because at least Elijah Moore has had some success, and you can point that maybe he could be successful on a team. Marshall is nothing. Like, he's not done anything. He's got a huge uphill battle to even make a roster at this point.
Yeah, I mean, to be signed by a roster first.
Yeah, but with Elijah Moore, I mean, maybe maybe teams have reached out, and maybe it's like a contract thing where he wants to get more than what teams are willing to offer, and that's why he's still out there. And it's a waiting game. I don't know.
Yeah, and his time may come after the draft too. Like, if teams whiffed on a prospect, or after they get the prospect into the building, they realize, oops. So
yeah, we have less than a month now that they will start either trying to fill out their roster to make it easier on whatever they pick in the draft, or after the draft, we'll have, hey, we didn't address these needs. What's still out there? Kind of signings.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think next week we will be going over the tight end position. I don't think we've locked down the exact number that we're going to go through, but yeah. So the tight end position, there's a few this year that should crack NFL lineups either as the number 1 or number 2 tight end.
The biggest one we do is going to be running backs, and that's still been hard for me to shove 20 in there, despite feeling like there's 30 guys to talk about.
Do as many as you want.
I don't know if I want to talk about 30 players on one podcast, though.
Honorable mentions.
Maybe we can split running backs in 2 groups. I don't know.
Absolutely. And then after we're done with all of our fantasy positions, we do a final mock draft the week of the draft. So I've only done one so far, but I've seen at least 10 of Alex's on X. Make sure you give him a follow.
However many I actually post on X, I've probably done 3 times that many.
Ooh, you only post the ones that you like.
Well, there's sometimes that I can narrow it down to what I think a team's going to do between a few players, and then there's sometimes, because I have it really zoomed out, that I accidentally put someone for the next team instead of the previous team, and some of these simulators don't let you undo, which I hate, and you have to start over.
They do not let you go back.
All right. Well, I think that does it for this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading and listening to this episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy and with our handle N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.